Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission here is simple. We take a powerful stack of sources, extract the knowledge you need, and, well, give you a genuine shortcut to being well-informed.
And today, we're focused entirely on one exceptionally rich source. It's a personal narrative that explores the foundation of an outdoor philosophy called Stay Rugged.
Right.
This is more than just a brand story, It's a deep dive into familial legacy, a very specific regional identity, and this intentional effort to preserve historical, specialized knowledge.
That's right. This source, it really lays out the complete origin story for something called Blackwater outdoor journeys. We're tracing its roots back to the dark soil and longleaf pines of the Okefenokee swamp region.
Right there on the Georgia-Florida line.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fascinating look at how an environment, a place, really shapes a mindset.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is just a profound case study. We're looking at how tradition and what the author calls the old ways, this local knowledge it's functionally disappearing, how that's being actively preserved and then translated into actionable principles for the modern world. It's like heritage as a curriculum.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our core mission here is to understand that relationship between geography and character. How did one specific unforgiving location and the life of the man who mastered it create such a durable, practical blueprint for approaching the wilderness?
And this resilience, it wasn't manufactured. It was forged by necessity. You had no other choice.
So to understand the mindset, we have to first understand the place.
Absolutely. The narrative immerses us immediately in what it calls the Blackwater country, focusing on this tiny, unassuming town of St. George.
The source doesn't just describe the location, it personifies it. We hear that the Okefenokee swamp doesn't just border civilization, it presses up against the edge and dares you to step inside.
That's such a great line. It suggests an environment that's constantly testing you. And the people who live there, well, they reflect that challenge. The Blackwater country is defined by dark water, towering longleaf pines, and slow stories. It's a place where time just moves differently.
Now, the people are described as being carved out of something different. They're literally shaped by the difficulty of the landscape.
Which takes us directly to the foundational character in this whole philosophy, the grandfather, Bruce Thompson.
Yes. The narrative is really careful to note he wasn't some figure of national renown. He wasn't wealthy.
No, not at all. But locally, in that corner of the world, he was the kind of person whose authority was just self-evident. You didn't question it.
So what makes him so compelling is this.
Yeah.
This duality of his life. He was essential to the rough industrial realities of the Blackwater, but at the same time, he also represented order and law.
He was the master of the chaos and the source of its containment. It's a real high-wire act.
It is. And here's where we really start to appreciate the complexity. His primary role was as the headman of a Turpentine camp. Now, for anyone listening who might not be familiar with that era, that was seriously heavy, dangerous labor.
Oh, absolutely. We can't gloss over what a Turpentine camp entailed. You're dealing with vast tracts of pine forest. The work involved tapping the pines, cutting these V shapes into the trunks, and collecting the resinous gum in barrels. And this gum was highly flammable, the work was back-breaking, and the conditions were isolated and harsh.
So as the headman, Thompson was responsible for the entire operation.
Everything. The safety of the men managing the mules, the gum barrels, maintaining the fire lines. He was responsible for, and I'm quoting here, the work nobody else wanted to touch.
And it's more than just management, right? He carried this instinctive natural knowledge of the swamp.
Yeah, the source says he carried that knowledge the same way people carry their car keys. It was just always on hand, automatic. Essential for survival out there.
But then you layer on his second role.
Yeah, the constable, the lawman. And he operated in an era where problems were handled quietly, locally, without all the bureaucracy we'd associate with law enforcement today.
Which raises a critical question, and it's one the source addresses beautifully. How did those two roles not conflict? How do you manage a rough camp of workers one day and then uphold the law over them the next?
That requires an almost impossible blend of authority and understanding, doesn't it?
It does.
And the answer seems to lie in his reputation and his proximity to what the source calls the in-between spaces. He lived between law and outlaw, between swamp and town, between work and survival.
He had to be respected by the legitimate townspeople and the rougher elements.
Exactly. The source illustrates it perfectly. One morning, he might be quietly checking on a hidden moonshine still, and the next, he's dealing with open trouble in town. He understood both sides.
He knew that the law in the Blackwater was often a negotiation with survival. And that ability to navigate the gray area without compromising his fundamental integrity, that's what built his reputation.
Absolute, unambiguous competence. And this competence, rooted in this hyper-local knowledge, it eventually became visible to the outside world.
Which brings us to April 1992. National Geographic arrived. They featured the area in an issue called Blackwater Country.
And this wasn't just a random decision. The magazine was clearly responding to this cultural recognition that this specific way of life, connected to a fading industry like turpentine harvesting, it was at an end.
They knew it was on borrowed time.
Their goal was precise. They aimed to document the last of the swamp people, the old ways, the men who understood this land better than the maps ever could.
And Bruce Thompson became the symbol of that fading era.
The source gives us this really striking visual of the photograph. You see him sitting on a rough wooden porch, hat pulled low, wearing a practical plaid shirt.
But it's the detail about his hands that gets you.
Yes, folded, like a man who didn't need to prove anything.
Think about what that suggests. In a world defined by physical labor and constant threat, his competence was so deeply ingrained, so self-evident, that the pose itself is one of total, quiet confidence.
He had mastered his environment and his roles within it. And that single photograph, according to the narrative, it captured an entire heritage, a way of life that is disappearing faster than we like to admit.
It really becomes the ultimate proof point for why Blackwater outdoor journeys needed to exist. The personal history became this public symbol.
But the legacy isn't just built on official roles or magazine spreads. It's also built on local folklore.
Yes, and we have to spend some time on one of the most significant pieces of that history, the legend of the Mule-Tail Fire.
This is where we shift from practical competency to something more like mythic weight.
And the source makes this important distinction, right? It says whether the story is verifiable fact or pure folklore, it sticks because they come from someplace real.
Exactly. It captures a deeper truth about the danger and the chaos of the environment they were working in.
And the details of the story are just incredible. The Mule-Tail Fire, it started back in the 1950s in a turpentine camp.
In what sounds like a terrifying accident, a mule somehow caught fire, and because the animal was near all that pine resin and brush, it ran, dragging burning gum and chaos behind it.
Just imagine that scene. The highly flammable pine resin igniting, the heat, the terror, and the mule, creating this mobile, unstoppable source of ignition across the dry brush.
The resulting blaze tore across the swamp. It burned for months. This is an ecological and economic catastrophe.
And who was the mule attributed to?
Bruce Thompson.
So his name is connected directly to one of the most destructive and memorable disasters in the region's modern history. He's associated not just with order, but also with being entangled in this elemental chaos.
It adds this undeniable layer of gravity. A man who lives in the in-between spaces has to contend with forces that can utterly destroy everything. The story is a constant reminder that no matter how competent you are, the environment is the ultimate authority.
And it's this harsh, beautiful, chaotic reality that gives birth to the philosophy that underpins the entire enterprise. Stay rugged.
The source is very clear about the motivation here. It says Blackwater Outdoor Journeys was created to preserve a belief, a mindset, a way of approaching the outdoors.
Not for clicks, not for views.
Exactly. It deliberately distinguishes itself from that. This is an act of deep cultural, maybe even moral preservation.
And that mindset is codified into 6 tenets, 6 non-negotiables that define what it means to stay rugged. These are the distillation of Bruce Thompson's life lessons.
They're translated into a modern philosophy. We should probably walk through them.
Let's do it. So the first tenet is fundamental to survival in that environment, to be prepared.
Well, of course. In the Blackwater, preparation isn't a suggestion. It's the difference between life and death when you're miles from help. You just don't get second chances.
That leads directly to the second one, to be humble.
The Mule-Tail Fire, right? That story demonstrated that the land is far greater than any one person's strength or planning. Humility is just recognizing the limits of your own control.
Third, and this one feels crucial for a modern listener, to rely on skill instead of luck.
Thompson didn't trust happy accidents when he was managing a payroll or a fire line. Competence was the only currency that mattered. You have to know your knots, know your navigation, know your tools, period.
Fourth, to understand that comfort is earned, not given. That's the turpentine camp mentality right there.
It is. Comfort is the product of hard work. You build the shelter, you gather the firewood, you earn your rest. There's no entitlement to ease in the swamp.
Fifth, to respect the land. Thompson's life was based on extracting resources, the resin. But to do that safely and sustainably, you had to have a kind of symbiotic relationship with the land.
Respecting it means understanding its boundaries and working within them, not against them.
And finally, the sixth tenet, which connects all the IROD actions to your inner character, to respect yourself enough to meet it honestly.
No pretense, no exaggerating your abilities, no half measures. You face the wild and you face yourself as you truly are. It's an honest accounting of your skill level.
And the narrative really emphasizes that teaching these practical skills, the canoe trips, the camp setups, it's all about carrying on that Thompson legacy. It's giving people today a tangible window into the values that his grandfather would have recognized instantly.
What's so fascinating here is the complete synthesis. We've seen how this deep geographical knowledge and a character forged by grit and quiet confidence can be the foundation of a modern enterprise. It's a masterclass in how profound personal history becomes practical educational content.
The ultimate truth distilled from this entire experience, the model that runs through the veins of Blackwater outdoor journeys is, it's simple. Out here, where the map ends, the wild begins.
And that's presented not just as some catchy slogan, but as a memory. A truth passed down from a man like Bruce Thompson, who quite literally didn't need a map to find his way or define his values.
He lived the motto before it was ever written down.
He understood the territory through instinct and experience and just plain work.
So what does this entire deep dive mean for you, the listener? I think the relevance is realizing that true confidence and durability, the ability to be rugged, it isn't about adopting an image.
No, it comes from honoring these fundamental, almost ancestral values. Preparation, humility, and relying on skill over chance. It's a call to look to a specific heritage to find a kind of universal strength.
And this raises an important question for all of us, I think. If Bruce Thompson successfully navigated his life in those historical in-between spaces, between law and outlaw, between industry and survival,
what are the modern in-between spaces in your life that require you to adopt that same mindset, that same reliance on skill instead of luck? Where does the certainty of your map end, and where does your own real wild begin?
Something to mull over as you navigate your own Blackwater country, whatever that may look like.
Because that spirit, that rugged way of meeting the world, didn't end with Bruce Thompson. It became the backbone of everything we're building today. The YouTube channel, Blackwater Outdoor Journeys, keeps the craft alive and carries. The stories, the Stay Rugged and Campfire Tales podcasts echo the wisdom, and our outdoor bushcraft camp skills community trains the next generation to carry it forward, where the map ends. The wild begins. Stay rugged.